she's not doing anything at the moment. She's
she's not saying that she doesn't want to, she's saying she doesn't know how to.
I find it scary. So I think if over the course of a few months, showing it with her, not asking her to do anything with it, just being around it, and then eventually it's not so scary. It's like, oh yeah, I know potentially could open doors.
I mean, he seemed very, despite the fact that he was having lessons, he seemed quite anti-technology.
So from a physical point of view, do you reckon all the courses I don't know, it seems quite
He was also, he said that he was mildly dyslexic.
Yeah.
Because they were that once, and then he was just like, no. And then I think with this he was learning, is it the dolphin sort of dolphin software?
So if there was a good neighbour scheme but that's going to come, or AGK that's going to come, then they came on the day that you were there the first time. So you were able to say, hello, this is so-and-so, make those introductions that people trust. So I think that there's this thing about, so where we've been saying signposting, I think that the way HLS might do signposting is more to do with, if the face-to-face is where the value is, then that signposting might come through an introduction to an outside agency.
Yeah.
How would we actually...
Oh, let's throw that in.
How would we identify this?
She makes it real for them.
Yeah. She's never heard about HLS, so how
would we tell
capture this?
You need to see what plans you can do. All you need to do is just see and that could be maybe
I mean, she is active. She goes to the park.
It's not very vulnerable, but I don't know, scrabble or something, some activity.
Absolutely. You need the technology, I suppose, wouldn't you?
And that his care could take him to the LGBT day centre, somewhere or whatever. He could then, extend his sort of social network, but then he could then talk about the home library service at that day centre and signpost to other users. So I think that would be a really good way to sort of raise awareness of his
We've got Lucy, who's 80 years old, and one of the big frustrations she has is that she says that she realises she'll soon need more intensive care, but doesn't have enough information on care homes in the area. So initially we started by saying the home library service, with more free time to do this middle bit, the delivery, that they'll have more time to kind of speak to her about that and have an iPad with her and show her care homes, give her information about that. As we built into it a little bit more, we started seeing that as maybe enabling her, seeing that she's already decided the solution. What is it that makes her think that she needs to go into a care home? And then we started to explore the fact that the home library service are quite well placed already by having this personal relationship with Lucy, that they're able to identify that it's probably not that she needs to go into a care home. Reading all the other information, it seems like she's just lonely, that she's not having enough social interaction. She really enjoys going grocery shopping and then going to the bank. So is that kind of the fact that she's not got social interaction, and that's why she wants to go into a care home. So then we were looking at ways to link her in with other people, and one of the things that we explored was a book club. And then we were also kind of, as part of that, started to realise that a book club just based on home library service users maybe wouldn't be very useful, because it wouldn't really, it would just be people of the same mindset. So if you could introduce her to a wider ranging book club, so something that was organised maybe by the main library that draws in those main library users, something that linked into schools as well. So having a book club around particular issues. In our case, we were looking at a book club around history, so home library service users who are interested in history, the main library users, people at school who are studying modern history, you know, are going to get to speak to Lucy and get her personal take on these things that they're just reading about. And then we saw by moving that book club away from her home environment as well, if you put it somewhere in one of the main libraries, such as here at Vice Pancras Square, you could then link in, you know, say the Home Library Service can say, I've organised transport for you to go along to that book club, but I've also made an appointment for you immediately afterwards to speak to someone about the different options about care homes. And then she is kind of being taken out of that situation. If it is a case of just loneliness, it might be that appointment after the book club. She says, actually, do you know what, I'm not interested in care homes now. You know, it's not, that wasn't, I don't think, the issue for me. So it's trying to bring the Home Library Service into this wider, bigger picture, so that Lucy's particular needs are met. And as well with the book club, if you're bringing people from schools, other library users, the things that she has, the problems that she has about, you know, using online shopping, it might be that someone else is part of the book club and say, oh, well, I do that all the time, look, I'll show you how you do it. Because that's taking some of the strain away from the Home Library Service of, rather than the Home Library Service having to provide all this, the Home Library Service being an enabler to bring people together and bring the Home Library Service users into the wider community, so to speak.
Great. So it becomes just much more dynamic. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Sorry, do you want to say? Well,
It's not. It's about the fact that the Home Library Service is about this personal interaction. So when we get into this idea, we were talking about when we get into this idea about the signposting. When we talked about the granularity of it, it's like, okay, what does that look like? You know, you're going to signpost someone off. So this gives you the opportunity to actually make these sort of keep that personal introductions to people.
Yeah. Bit about, so we've got Anne, who is 86 years old, and she's quite, from what we can gather from the information here, she's quite active. Like, she can actually go out and about, and she goes and visits Age UK and goes out to the park and things like that. So we were talking a bit about how perhaps the Home Library Service, rather than, you know, kind of utilise the networks that she already has. So if she's going to Age UK and other people that are coming to the Age UK Centre, is the opportunity for, rather than visiting people individually, going to that particular centre and facilitating, like you say, like a book club or something like that. So people are getting together, forming networks with other people, and not, you know, so it's facilitating the kind of support network there. And also she visits her GP once a month just for a checkup, and because she's got memory issues, he's, you know, recommended that perhaps like simple writing exercises would be helpful for her. So we'll talk about how that could be a bit of a touch point. So for, you know, if there's a social worker kind of involved at the surgery, you know, they can sort of signpost a bit more to the benefits of the Home Library Service, and maybe there's something there about, again, through getting her involved in book groups or something, there's sort of thinking exercise, writing exercise that could come off of that to help her. I don't know, anything else to add?
I think we were saying she's fairly active and may not necessarily be the sort of kind of client that Home Library Service immediately needs. But should that happen, then, you know, there were other various community points where the Home Library Service should perhaps you know, promote itself to get the right referrals, because obviously, you know, there's only so many bodies that can go out. But somebody like Anne, whose you know, eyesight is perhaps deteriorating a little bit, who finds it hard to hear, you know, but enjoys community presence, needs to be out and about a lot more and make use of what's out in the community, rather than be almost conditioned into being housebound.
Okay, so we got quite a tricky one actually. Her name is Margot. She's 60 years old. She has regular visits from family and friends who do some cooking and cleaning for her. But she's very active and healthy. But she does, I mean, to have bad hearing and problems with eyesight. So as that dual sensory loss kind of starts to get worse, that could be an issue for her. She attends an awful lot of activities at various places, including the library. but she doesn't like to take library books home, just reads them at the library. And we talked about her, that she's not exactly suitable candidate for the home library service at the moment, yet she'd be a really good person to engage with, given that she's so active, could really be a sort of promoter of the service. She lives in sheltered housing and would be able to promote within the scheme she lives in and her church, etc. So yeah, I think I only just spotted the sensory need bit at the end. So she may well actually need that service at some point herself. She uses information technology, so the home library service could really promote the kind of more accessible ways of reading books on her tablet as well.
Okay.
I mean, there was a challenge about how, so you understand that Margot, because she is French, and obviously being an ambassador, and she's somebody who deliberately, she wants to be, she actually stays, she can't stand being at home. She's actually married, we've got a husband who lives at home as well, really, so I don't know what that indicates, but, which is in itself alarming, because he could, you know, someone pointed out could be a carer and he's just exhausted with caring with her, but actually she's not, and she's actually publicly stated, I don't like to spend lots of time at home because she thinks it's, I can't pronounce that word, deleterious to herself and to her being. So that's an indicator that she's obviously definitely not somebody that's eligible. So we're thinking about how do we target her, because we were told there's already less staff in actually our physical libraries. So she's obviously going into a library every day and using a library in Camden at some point. So we can't target her because we don't actually know her as an individual. She won't be registered on the system for using the library service, but she's going in to use the library books. So there's a real dilemma about how do we get her, I think I called it Margot's Mega Mix Promotion series sort of thing, which was about how she gets out there and promotes the homelands, because it is ultimately about that age transitional thing and the dual sensory loss that Jamie picked up on, but it's also about sharing that service with other older people. So we were thinking there might be other ways that maybe the team could go into libraries, spend a day there with a table and say, well not day, but sometime to target people. There's a sheltered housing forum in Camden that I think it meets monthly, I don't know, which is chaired by Councillor Lorraine Reaver. So somebody could go to promote the service there. She, you know, if we can get hold of this person, I would. You know, she's brilliant. I mean, we called her a champion. We use some jargon that we use in adults, or people use in adult social care. So she's an expert through experience, her lived experience, as well as her experience of utilising the library service, utilising IT, other things. But then maybe going to things like resource centres. So resource centres, we the council run resource centres. They're primarily for older people, and so do Age UK. They run 2 resource centres. But then there's C4, which is the consortium of community centres in Camden. So we could target them because, of course, they do work with older people. The danger, it's interesting, isn't it, when you sort of look at that, because I suppose the big question that's come up for me and listening to earlier is that what's happened to all the young people who may be socially isolated at home, who may be because of it or due to a disability, lack of mobility, aren't aware of the home library service. So I was wondering, we're focusing very much on older people than age, which is an interesting one because that throws up that whole issue about transition and age and all those kinds of things. So we're thinking about, are there other ways we can sort of get into the community and maybe sharing it that way, because she's obviously very active, this woman. She's involved with the refugee centre, she's got a faith community she goes to, lots of things, so she can promote that service there if we can just get hold of her. and French is her first language, so that apparently when she was feeding back into the group, when she met with them, she was saying that she doesn't feel that she's competent enough using English as an additional language, but she's had a third level education, higher, referring to Irish bits, she's been to university, sorry. It's an interesting one, but it was interesting, we probably wouldn't be able to now track this person down unless we started looking for it in some way, because she may be not on the system.
Yeah, in fact she avoids the system.
Oh, does she?
Well, you know, apart from the sheltered housing, her approach was, I want to remain independent, I go to the libraries, everything is brilliant, I have my phone, you know, so in fact the idea of sort of
being registered in
It's almost sort of, so,
well, it's the husband then, he's dead at home, isn't he? It's not really just that's the thing.
Okay, well we've got Jason, who probably would be more of a sort of typical sort of, would meet the criteria for sort of receiving the home library service. He's 45 years old, and he's housebound and he uses a wheelchair. and he has a sort of private carer who sort of comes in twice a week and takes him out sort of in his wheelchair to sort of go to the hairdresser and to the shops and things like that. So yes, he's sort of very sort of socially isolated, but he's got a very, very active mind, and particularly he's sort of very interested in sort of political sort of issues and LGBT issues. And so Philip mentioned, you know, that there is an LGBT day centre in Camden, because obviously Jason's only 45, he doesn't want to go to sort of centres for older people, he wants to go where there's like-minded people of his own age. So I suppose we sort of thought, you know, could the HLS, you know, sort of act as that kind of, that signposting, oh actually, you know, there is this LGBT forum in Camden, why don't you sort of think about going there? Or maybe put them in touch with the sort of other wider LGBT networks there in Camden, because there is a sort of really strong network in Camden. So we sort of thought, you know, when the service is sort of finding out about people's likes and their interest in books, it kind of then sparks off. Actually, they're interested in political issues, they're interested in LGBT DVDs. Oh, actually, well, then maybe we could sort of facilitate a way that they could access some of these like events and services in Camden. And I think for us, we sort of, like Philip also mentioned, that there's a sort of a Camden Companion, which is a sort of information and advice leaflet. And I think one sort of quick thing that I think the team could do would be to sort of give out copies of this sort of Camden Companion to their home library service users, and I think that would be a really good way of starting to, you know, build up that links with adult social care colleagues and finding out a bit more about what's going on in Camden, which may sort of then spark sort of other people to sort of go out and having more social interaction. And so yeah, I think that's the sort of the real touch point for us, is the HLS and adult social care really linking up, following this workshop today, and linking up with the information and advice team, and actually kind of thinking about, you know, how can we actually work together better, and you know, doing some sort of cost benefit analysis of, you know, what the value of what the service is providing is keeping people out of acute care and hospital care. So I think there has to be some discussions around how this service could be funded, because it is providing, you know, sort of key sort of prevention issues. So yeah, that's sort of one thing we'd like to take away from today.
Well, we've got Mildred, who's quite a fit and able 80-year-old. She's still interested in a lot of things, but her ability to take part in the things that interest her is curtailed. We were saying that there is she would be a prime candidate for digital, for you know, showing them the ins and outs of what you can do with iPads. She already she has family not so far away she's in contact with. An ideal way into using laptops or iPads would be Skyping, so she could see her daughters who live away and converse with them. She's still a visitor to lunch clubs, to age UK centres. So she will be an interesting person in terms of promoting the service to people who are perhaps more isolated than she is. She's still living independently, and in terms of her interactions with HLS, she would be an ideal candidate for promoting the service amongst people she knows locally who are less well off than herself. What else do we have?
I think
for me, with Mildred, I think she does seem to have quite a fulfilling life at the moment. She's got social activity, she's got quite a good network. She is currently able to participate in that, and I think that's really important in terms of her living independently. I think one thing that struck me about it, and it came through, I think, some of the discussions about digital inclusion and things like that, is that I think things could change quite easily for Mildred in terms of her health. Yeah. I mean, actually looking at the persona, she very much reminded me of actually my nan, who was very independent and had this very fulfilling social life as well. But a fall that was related to her, problems with eyesight, kind of changed that overnight. Yes. And I think maybe things like the digital inclusion would help things like resilience. And we have been talking about resilience quite a lot in Camden over the last few months. I think if through having the ability to still connect with people face to face by using technology, if that was still open to, I think that would make, maybe...
Is it comfort?
Yeah, and I think maybe having a life that's still that's more difficult to get out of the house, if she can still connect with people and talk with people online and connect to forums and do research and have a wider access to different reading materials and things like that, I think that would help her resilience in terms of staying independent in her own home, even if her health was to deteriorate for any reason. So I think that's why the digital inclusion is so important, but I think it does require someone to sit down and go through it and really show it to them rather than just say leaving them a bit of technology. Say if you've just got a 10-minute visit, if you're just leaving them a piece of kit, they might be a bit scared to pick it up. So.
But much more nurturing through, again, somebody's specific interest to start building a technological sort of capacity for them.
Yeah, and it's probably the equivalent of, say, the computer classes we run in libraries. We'll actually have sessions where this is how, really simple stuff, this is how you use the mouse, this is how you use a social network or open a Word document or your CV and things like that. I think maybe the equivalent of that through HLS might be a way of making those users more resilient in their own home.
Yeah, great. Okay, well thank you very much everybody for your time and also for your effort in coming up with ideas and participating this afternoon. What we'll do is the students will take all this information and in fact we're going to use it as a sort of catalyst, inspiration for actually what the services services that can be developed. Now one of the things they would love to do is once they've actually got some service concepts out of this workshop is to come back to you guys and say, actually, could we have, what does this look like? And they'll have service journeys, they'll have touch points, they'll have prototypes. So actually you can almost, and they might even have film and role play on how the service will work. So we've got a lot of work still to do in terms of developing, but you've provided some really inspirational sort of ideas and possibilities for this afternoon. But also like to know your feedback on how you found it and whether it's opened up discussions or actually this is very speculative, so we've got to take it to another level. Obviously there are lots of issues in terms of logistics, operational stuff that will need to be covered when we come up with the service concepts, and again we'd love your input on that. So do you have any questions or feedback that you want to add or say?
No, I think it's really exciting. It's an exciting way and methodology to use, and I mean I'm really pleased that the services use the staff team as the basis for that. I think sometimes that doesn't always happen, and I know that the section I'm based in, we're trying to promote that more and more, and that process, that those other stakeholders are involved, and I think that's really important. I think there's a challenge though for the whole organisation about how we communicate, because when you were speaking, Jane, I was just thinking, hang on, we have Careline. The way we keep people independent is through technology in their own homes. We have a process, and you can get bronze, silver, gold versions of Careline as well to keep people in their home. So I'm thinking, why aren't we linking in with that service that we provide, linking in then to other things around technology that people can utilise in different ways? So I think there's a big challenge about how we work in these silos still, and I think that's us as an organisation, and that's an organisational development thing. But maybe through this process you've opened that up even more by doing that, all of you as students and tutors and things, by exposing it in a way that on one level, you might classify that work as adult social care work, and the home life work, basic preventative work. Because you do actually get in other parts of the council where you've got people who are support workers. So we've got a floating support team, for example, who go out there and do that kind of work. We've got people who work with people with learning disabilities specifically about maintaining their independence, keeping them active in the community. So where are we sort of sharing that learning with other colleagues? And maybe that's what you've exposed for me anyway, but thank you. So.
Okay, just thank you to the students for producing the material and all the thought that's gone into the work.
Thank you to the students and to all of the Camden people as well for making such great contribution, and for the students for catalysing such wonderful tools that for me enable us to get to grips with some of these slightly more nuanced issues. That often when we sort of talk about things from a distance, we can sort of think about switching things on or off is one of the things that sort of come through for me. So is it technology or is it people? And actually what we're realising is, well, it might be technology for some in some contexts, and actually others might benefit much more through a personal, person-to-person approach. And HLS can make a contribution to both of those areas. And just the amplification, so what's come out as well for me is the amplification around that thing around that HLS is about this relationship with a person. So it's a relationship between the council and a citizen that's actually found around two people around interest, not need, but then that need can be sort of met through the interest. And the thing, when we talk so much, again, jargon, we talk so much about signposting. Now, what are we talking about signpost? Is it a signpost in the street? Is it a tab on an internet site? And actually this sort of conversation on this table sort of ended up with this thing around almost the idea of physical introduction is another way of signposting. And for some of these people, the HLS people in a really strong position, the guys here when they were doing the work around the month and the week stuff, it wasn't so much signpost someone off. It was about actually there are these other people that would be a benefit to Lucy, but actually Lucy wouldn't be happy with them just turning up on her doorstep. But if they turned up when the HLS person was there and they were able to literally make an introduction rather than just book an appointment and signpost it, then something more. So it just so I thought that it amplified a lot of the values that were shared at the beginning of the workshop, identified by the research of the students, which obviously was known to the people who were very close to the service, but was less easy for the rest of us to understand. So it worked very well for me, and thank you very much for